Open-hearted. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate the choir being here. Randy. Randy and I grew up about 20 miles apart, and I'm 1 year older than he is. And I always feel like I'm seeing my dark side up here. And it just opens my heart to see him again. It's great to have you here. So thank you, Randy, for being here. I want to talk today a little bit about surrender and the uses of suffering. I once thought that was a joke, the uses of suffering, but really as I've gotten older, I really get that really the thing is that when you suffer, you invite yourself to look afresh, to try something new, to be different than you were, because whatever you were doing just ain't working anymore. And so you look for answers. And so lately I've been looking for answers, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that this suffering really can lead you into the direction of awakening to your true nature, and also inviting a deeper experience of being one with the presence of God. And let me just talk to you about how that works. So essentially, when you have lost everything, that's usually when you go, I surrender, right? And it kind of makes sense. If you were in a cage fight, you would start to do the tap out, but we're not talking about surrendering to another person. We're talking about surrendering to the higher aspects of yourself. And this surrender is really a realignment of yourself with that which is. Now, at some point, we have developed this habit of thinking about ourselves as separate. We are separate individuals, and we have come by this quite naturally. Our parents, from the time we were an infant, did the enculturation of you are a separate being. And they spent much of your youth getting you to completely believe this. And then you spend much of your teenage years feeling the suffering of being isolated and not wondering if you're good enough or not. And then you grow into adulthood and you become more powerful, and you kind of find it's kind of convenient to be an agent of your own, to be your own man or woman. And that's all working out pretty well until it starts to fall apart. And when it starts to fall apart, you're in a new season of life where life says, hey, look, the path of maturity went that way, and now the path of maturity is this way. And we invite you to take a turn and to look again and to try something else. So in the beginning, when you were a little baby, you were kind of fuzzy about your boundaries. You were not sure who you were and wasn't really clear. But over time, you got more and more clear, and you got more and more clear about what reality was, and you stopped really being fuzzy about it. You got really clear that who you are sits inside this skin, and it's really inside this skin that you've got to take care of, and that becomes who you are. And all that begins to be formed around a single thought, which I'll call the I thought. That's I, me, this I thought. Not necessarily a bad thing, a thing, though, indeed. That you have the I thought before you have the next thought. So you have I am cold, I am wet, I'm hungry, I am whatever. This I do this, I do that, I do something else. I have my definition, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an Indian chief, all that I. We have all this this formation of this definition of who we are, and we are inside this definition of who we are, and that's the limit of who we are. And unfortunately, if you really want to grow spiritually, you're going to have to break out of that, because this is all that is, and at some point you realize that just ain't enough to just be inside this I thought. We must do more. Something must change. And so many people take up meditation. At that point, they take up meditation, and essentially what meditation does to some degree, it thins this I thought out a little bit. And at times, maybe, you have a breakthrough and you have this sensation, oh my God. And you're not just this I, but there's a sense of oneness with everything, or a sense of peace and harmony. This transcendence happens. And then it usually comes back, but you have this moment of that. And so these are great experiences because they begin to rewire your whole way of thinking. And it's a healing, and often the body feels very different, and there's just a light that happens. But there's another way to get there, and that is to suffer greatly, or suffer beyond your limit, whatever it is. It may not be big in the world's eyes, but you might come to your bottom. You might come to your point of exasperation. You might just come to say, I don't like it the way it is. And that's where surrender comes in. And in surrender, you begin to take the I thought out of first position, and you say to that which has always been around and in and through you and as you, say, I surrender. I drop the I thought. I am not first position. I'll take second, third, fifth, or no position as you require. I surrender. And it is not that you are giving it up to something other than you. You're giving it up to something greater than the I, but it is not opposite of you. It is also you. I'd like to give you a picture of this. So, if you imagine the ocean. So in the ocean, which is big, right? We'll call that God, all that is. So for our sake of argument, that's all that is this ocean. And in the ocean is a paramecium, a little tiny creature, and it has little cilia on the side, and it flutters those cilia and it moves through the ocean. And it has a thin membrane that separates it from just being the ocean. And it sits inside that membrane and it goes, I. Sort of. The membrane itself might be considered the I thought, this I thought that just kind of seems to be the barrier between you realizing your true nature and the nature of your place in the universe. This I thought, which has you so separate and so boxed in by self-definition and by ownership, etc. This I thought is that membrane. And now when the paramecium gets to the point where it can't stand itself anymore, it doesn't like its circumstances, and that's after it has been fluttering those cilia just crazy. But oddly enough, no matter how fast it can go, the tide is going this way, and it's trying to go that way, right? But it can't beat the tide, and so here it goes, right? All it can do is make some effort. But if you, much smarter than the paramecium, say, I surrender. I surrender, I'm going with it. I'm going with this consciousness, this awareness, this intelligence, the presence of God, the architect of the universe. I'm going with it. So the universe, which has somehow been able to align the stars and the planets, has been able to take inorganic matter and make living matter out of it. The thing that has been able to fire up a nuclear reactor that would last 10 billion years, it's been able to do all that, but you wouldn't trust it with your life, so to speak. Or would you? If your life is bad enough, yeah, you take the option. And so I'm saying at this point, if you're suffering a lot, well, surrender. It doesn't mean like all the circumstances of your life are going to change in that next moment, but there is something that will, according to my experience and some others, you will have a sense of change inside. There will be a beginning of a sense of peace or harmony, a sense of relaxation, a sense that, okay, there's more here than my philosophy can encompass. I'm going to open and see what happens. And when that happens and you get in the flow, then unusual things can happen. And when we were doing a prayer class, and there's a woman who said, she was going through this practice of surrender, and she goes, I don't know, I got on the phone and nothing they told me on the phone made me happy. I was upset, but I just said, okay, I'll put it down. I'll just put it down and I'll go about my business. And then everything she was trying to have happen by that phone call just unfolded naturally as she surrendered her need to make it her way and just let it unfold. And she found by the end of the day, everything was accomplished. It all worked out. It was done. And the I thought in that moment had kind of thinned enough that the wisdom of all that is was permeating her mind so much that it really felt like her thoughts. Oh, get up and go. Get in the car, turn right, turn left. Yeah, but it wasn't so I commanded, if you know the difference. It is a bit subtle, I know, because there is a continuum between the one presence and your consciousness, yes, and so it is kind of hard to know, but you thin out this I thought that just separates you from everything, and you have more permeability so that you can join with the ocean, and the ocean is joining with you. And this is kind of the goal of spirituality, to come to a place where your identity is changing, where it is changing from small to large, from limited to unlimited, from isolated and frightened to absolutely at peace, from out of harmony with all that is to in harmony with it. That is the practice. That's why we do spiritual practice. That's why we do meditation, why we do prayer. It's why we read books, come to church, talk to people, is we want an expanded sense of self that encompasses something other than my little I. So if you're suffering now, and I hope you're not, but if you are, remember the words of Jesus as he's on the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the meek, they shall inherit the earth. Now, many times I've heard that and I thought, well, I'll just kind of slink along and maybe I'll get everything. I don't think that's what it means. I think it's the meek of the I thought, this sense of separation, this less I. I remember a friend of mine said, I asked her if she'd met this woman, and my friend says, yeah, I did, but I didn't like her. Her eyes were too close together. I did this, and then I did that, and then enough of that, Her eyes were too close. So you become meek. You're not less I involved. And with that, you inherit the earth. What a surprise. It's not your normal motivational speech, is it? Which says, build yourself up and go out there and kick some butt because right? Well, we've heard enough of those. This is a different one. Let yourself be meek. Meek in the face of the divine. Meek in the face of the big questions of life. Maybe even the direction of your life. Be meek. And let the presence come in and lead. Let it be the lead. Let the ocean be the lead so that you can know, be, and experience things that your eye can't imagine. That is the call. Let us surrender to that which is greater than us, that is also us. On that, let us pray. This light of mine would really like to shine. But I think I put it under a bushel basket of my own self-definition. I now ask that that basket be lifted and that I see more clearly, shine more brightly. I am like the wanderer who leaves home full of self-knowledge and pride and arrogance, and ends up in the far-off country, not able to feed myself. And I come back to the Father who says, welcome home. You are always my son. You only had to come back. I am like the paramecium, so busy going my way, I can't see that I'm wasting my time. I surrender to the one presence, to the divine, to a wisdom greater than mine, to take me home, to lead me, to order my steps. I surrender.